Hello again, YouTubers, on with SpongeBob 101 back here again on the SpongeBob channel with a review of episode 290, Spatula of the Heavens and Gary's Playhouse. This hypnosis states, SpongeBob embarks on an epic journey to have his beloved spatula reforged by the legendary Guru Greasetrap. Also, SpongeBob builds a snail house outside for Gary to play in while he is at work. Let's dive right in. Starting off with Spatula of the Heavens. This is another SpongeBob adventure-style episode, which is a genre I really enjoy. Faced with a very hungry mob in the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob frantically tries to fulfill orders, and he accidentally leaves his spatula on the grill for too long, causing the steel to weaken and break apart. SpongeBob refuses to use any other spatula and begs Mr. Krabs to let him go and reforge it, with a time limit of course, given that Krabs threatens to replace him with Sponge Tom. We then have a short montage of him returning home, packing his bag, and then setting out on a journey across jellyfish fields, kelp forests, and through the desert where there's a random ice cream truck. I thought the use of the ice cream cones as skates was pretty cool, and him going up and down Bikini Atoll was also a nice addition. So finally he gets to the foot of the mystical Misty Mountains, and almost immediately loses everything he packed by dropping it off the cliff. But anyways, Rube is there working as a tour guide as, usual, and leads SpongeBob across a very perilous bridge only to time out and take the elevator down to the parking lot. So SpongeBob always has to do things the hard way, and I respect that. After more climbing, SpongeBob reaches the summit and encounters Guru Greasetrap, who initially tries to offer for sale some kitchen equipment to SpongeBob for some reason, only to realize he's just there for reforging. SpongeBob naturally makes things more difficult when he tries to quote-unquote help, opening the equipment closet and allowing anvils to drop on the Guru's hands. That's not the only type of harm the Guru faces though. Eventually, the Guru gives up and agrees that SpongeBob is ready to reforge his own spatula, which he actually succeeds, and the Guru gives SpongeBob a well-deserved kick in the butt down the mountain. SpongeBob snowballs and lands on a very excited Rube, turning him into a snowman, before rolling all the way back to the Krusty Krab, crashing through the roof just in time to avoid unemployment. Well, all of that turned out to be for nothing because the spatula immediately snaps. SpongeBob decides then to take Guru Greasetrap's advice that his true spatula is inside of him, in his heart or whatever, and transforms his hands into spatulas to successfully whip up a bonanza of Krabby Patties for the hungry masses, while completely decimating himself. Now, the episode ends with Greasetrap showing up at the Krusty Krab wanting a Krabby Patty, and is puzzled as to why SpongeBob even used such a creative solution when all he had to do was literally open himself and take the actual spatula out of his body. That's a really roundabout way to say SpongeBob doesn't even know where his spatula is, but well, okay. Plot gets 7 out of 10. I did enjoy the episode on a whole, with SpongeBob rushing out on a journey to get his spatula fixed so he can avoid losing his job. It did feel like there was something on the line for once. As for the nonsense that SpongeBob put the Guru through, well, that's kind of expected at this point, and I really like the idea of SpongeBob using his hands as spatula, but again, the ending spoiled it for me. Instead, the Guru giving SpongeBob a new spatula in pity would, at least be a nicer ending. Animation gets 8 out of 10. I really appreciated the use of those Hawaiian backgrounds in this episode because it brought back memories of season 1. Plus, there were plenty of epic scenes, particularly the SpongeBob journey montage, Rube being overly dramatic as usual, the moronic ways in which the Guru was harmed, and of course, the sponge spatula scene. Unique characteristics also gets 8 out of 10. We've seen SpongeBob needing to repair his spatula before, but this time we also got an adventure to go along with it, and I'd say we need more of that. The adventure tag on that is. Plus, Guru Greasetrap is a really interesting character, and I wish SpongeBob had been a bit more serious when learning from him, but, it's SpongeBob. Overall, this episode gets 23 out of 30 from me. Next up, Gary's Playhouse. This episode is basically meant to give viewers a cuteness overload, especially since the characters keep saying "too cute" throughout the episode. It was also a really interesting way to bring together SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs, all focusing on Gary and his pals. Strange how Plankton never showed up despite Spot initially being there. Guess they didn't have enough showtime to fit him in. Regardless, the episode begins with SpongeBob surprising Gary with his very own playhouse. Gary causes a ruckus at night, sprucing it up, and Squidward accidentally mistakes Gary for Larry, getting bashed after yelling at the latter on the phone. The next morning, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward awake to find that a miniature home lane has appeared, and Gary is cosplaying as SpongeBob. Spot pretends to be Gary. A clarinet-playing blue urchin has set up his home in a garbage can, and a pink slug mimics Patrick's behavior. This expectedly gives them a cuteness overload, and they spend the rest of the day enthusiastically watching the mini versions of themselves from the stands. Yeah, they put up stands. Super cool that they let Gary and Pat Slug play Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, and even let them have a invisible boatmobile, which they used to terrorize Squid Urchin. Patrick also got a great ice cream handed to him by Hans, which he immediately devoured. So night falls, and just like with SpongeBob and Patrick, Sponge Gary and Pat Slug keep calling out their good nights to the annoyance of Squid Urchin. By morning, Patrick is hilariously sucking on Squidward's head, and the three of them are awoken by a very angry Mr. Krabs who questions why they were missing the whole of the past day. For some reasons, Mr. Krabs thought it was a good idea to put the cash register on the grill that he was grilling the patties on, making the change very, well, hot. So the tension is immediately broken when the Sea Bunny appears on the scene with red oven mitts portraying Mr. Krabs. So Bunny Krabs hauls Sponge Gary over to a mini Krusty Krab, just as buses of nematodes surround the restaurant. I was really surprised that they included this, since what happens is basically a regurgitation of Help Wanted, which the characters themselves do acknowledge. However, faced with intense pressure, Gary decides that this ain't fun anymore, breaks the mini hydrodynamic spatula, and storms out, bulldozing the whole playset with a karate glove bulldozer. These adaptations are just too creative. The end, SpongeBob takes Pet Slug and Squid Urchin in, and of course the cuteness is just too much for him. SpongeBob explodes in happiness to end the episode. Of course, you gotta check that box again. The plot gets 9 out of 10. I thought this episode was genuinely cute overall, with the animals doing a great job at portraying SpongeBob and the rest, but the whole segment relating to Help Wanted was something I thought just made this episode absolutely amazing plot-wise, and Gary deciding it was too much work to be fun just goes to his nature too. Animation gets 8 out of 10. The whole point of this episode is to demonstrate the cuteness and resourcefulness of pets, and I think it did a really good job visuals-wise. The invisible boatmobile harassment of Squid Urchin, Patrick and his random ice cream, them cheering on in the stands, and of course the nematode frenzy. Unique characteristics gets 10 out of 10. This episode was really unique in 2 aspects. The first relates to the independent nature of Gary creating his own mock pineapple playhouse, and then getting all the other sea creatures to play along. The second was the literal throwback to the pilot episode, which was probably included for nostalgia's sake, but I enjoyed it. Overall, this episode gets 27 out of 30 from me. That's all for our review of these 2 episodes. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about them. Make sure to subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys again in the next SpongeBob video. Till then, bye!